In a quiet laboratory late at night, a young scientist stood alone, staring at a screen filled with strange patterns. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of machines. Outside, the world continued as usual, people walking, cars moving, cities glowing with light. Everything looked normal, solid, and predictable. For centuries, humans believed reality worked like a giant machine. The universe followed clear rules, and matter existed whether anyone was watching it or not. A rock was a rock, a star was a star, and the world seemed stable and real. But deep inside the world of quantum physics, scientists began to see something that did not make sense. Tiny particles, smaller than atoms, were behaving in ways that shocked even the smartest minds. When scientists studied these particles, they noticed something strange. When no one tried to observe them directly, the particles acted like waves of possibility. They spread out like ripples on water, existing in many possible places at the same time. But the moment a scientist tried to measure them, something mysterious happened. The particles suddenly behaved like solid objects, as if they had chosen one exact place to exist. It was as if the universe itself was waiting to be observed before deciding what to become. This discovery confused scientists around the world. At first, they thought the measuring devices were disturbing the particles. Maybe the instruments were simply pushing them around. But experiment after experiment showed the same strange result. Observation seemed to change the outcome. Some scientists felt uneasy about this idea because it raised a very uncomfortable question. What does it really mean to observe something? Is it the measuring device that changes the particle? Or is it the act of gaining information? Or something even stranger? Could the observer somehow play a role in shaping reality itself? One famous experiment began to reveal just how strange this idea might be. Scientists fired tiny particles toward a wall with two narrow openings. If the particles behaved like tiny solid balls, they should pass through one opening or the other. But something unbelievable happened. The particles acted like waves and passed through both openings at the same time, creating a pattern of light and dark lines on a screen behind the wall. It was a pattern that should not exist if the particles were simply solid objects. Then, the scientists tried something different. They placed detectors near the openings to observe which slit each particle passed through, and suddenly, the strange wave pattern disappeared. Now the particles behaved like ordinary objects, going through one slit or the other. The simple act of observing changed the result. The universe seemed to behave differently when someone was watching. This discovery became known as the observer effect. For many scientists it was deeply unsettling, because it suggested something that felt almost impossible. At the smallest level of reality, the universe might not be fully decided until it is observed. The particles existed as possibilities first, and only became definite when measured. It was as if reality itself remained flexible until the moment of observation. Some physicists tried to ignore the deeper meaning of this discovery. They focused only on the mathematics, treating the experiments as strange but useful tools. But others could not stop thinking about the mystery. If observation changes reality, then what exactly is the role of the observer? Is the universe simply reacting to measuring devices, or could consciousness itself play a hidden role? The question became even more fascinating when people began to think about the human mind. Every day, humans observe the world around them. They watch the sky, listen to sounds, and focus their attention on countless things. But what if observation is not just passive? What if the act of observing is part of how reality takes shape? This idea sounded almost unbelievable, yet the experiments continued to show the same strange results again and again. The deeper scientists looked into the quantum world, the stranger it became, and slowly, a new possibility began to appear. Maybe humans are not just watching the universe. Maybe, in some mysterious way, they are participating in it. And if that is true, then the most important question is no longer only about particles and experiments. The real question becomes something much closer to home. What role does the human mind play in the story of reality? The strange discovery about observation did not end in that quiet laboratory. Scientists around the world began repeating the experiments again and again, hoping to understand what was really happening inside the hidden world of tiny particles. What they found only made the mystery deeper. One of the most famous experiments in the history of physics became the center of this puzzle. It was called the double-slit experiment, and at first it looked very simple. Scientists set up a wall with two tiny openings, or slits, cut into it. Behind that wall was a screen that could record where particles landed. Then they fired extremely small particles, one at a time, toward the wall. If these particles behaved like tiny solid balls, the result should have been simple. Each particle would go through one slit or the other, leaving two clear lines on the screen behind the wall. But that was not what happened. Instead, the screen showed a strange pattern made of many bright and dark lines. This pattern looked exactly like what waves create when they pass through two openings and overlap with each other. It was a pattern of interference, something that normally happens with water waves or light waves. But these were not waves of water or light. They were tiny particles of matter. Even stranger, the particles were fired, one at a time. Yet somehow the final pattern still looked like waves interfering with themselves. It was as if each particle traveled through both slits at the same time, spreading out like a wave of possibilities before landing on the screen. For many scientists, this result felt almost impossible. How could a single particle behave like a wave, and how could it pass through two places at once? Still, the experiment clearly showed this behavior again and again, but the real shock came when scientists tried to observe the particles more carefully. They decided to place detectors near the two slits to see which opening each particle passed through. The idea seemed simple. They just wanted to watch the particle's path. But the moment they turned on the detectors, something remarkable happened. The mysterious wave pattern vanished. Now the screen showed only two simple lines. Exactly what scientists would expect if the particles were behaving like solid objects. The particles were no longer acting like waves. They were acting like ordinary matter. The only thing that had changed was the act of observation, when no one observed. The path. The particles behaved like waves of possibility. But when scientists tried to measure their path, the particles behaved like solid objects. Observation seemed to force the particle to choose a single outcome. This result shocked the scientific world. Some scientists first believed that the measuring device was physically disturbing the particle. Maybe the detectors were simply bumping into it and changing its behavior. But even when the measuring tools became extremely gentle and precise, the same strange result appeared. The outcome still depended on whether the particle was being observed. This raised a very uncomfortable question. If the universe behaves differently when it is observed, then what does observation really mean? Is it the measuring device that causes the change, or is it something deeper, something connected to the act of gaining information? Some physicists began to wonder if reality at the smallest level does not exist in one fixed form. Instead, it may exist as many possibilities at once. Only when an observation is made does one possibility become real. It was like a story that has many possible endings, but only one ending appears when the final page is read. The deeper scientists explored the quantum world, the more they realized that reality might not be as solid and predictable as people once believed. Instead of being a fixed structure, the universe might be more like a field of possibilities waiting to unfold, and that realization led to an even bigger mystery. If observation can shape the behavior of particles, then what exactly counts as an observer? Is it just a machine collecting data? Or could the presence of consciousness play a hidden role in this strange process? The answer to that question would open the door to one of the most fascinating ideas in science and philosophy, the idea that the mind itself might be connected to the fabric of reality. As scientists continued studying the strange behavior of quantum particles, the mystery grew even deeper. The experiments clearly showed that observation could change the outcome, but no one fully understood why this happened. At first, many physicists believed the answer was simple. They thought the measuring device itself was disturbing the particles. Any attempt to observe something so small might naturally affect it. But as technology improved, the instruments became more precise and less intrusive, yet the strange results continued to appear. The behavior of particles still depended on whether they were being observed. This forced scientists to ask a very difficult question. What exactly counts as an observer? Is it just a machine that collects data? Or is observation something more than that? Some researchers believed that any measuring device could act as an observer. As long as the device interacted with the particle and recorded information, the result would become fixed. But others wondered if the situation might be more complicated, because at the end of every experiment, something interesting always happened. The data was eventually viewed by a human mind. A scientist looked at the results and understood what had occurred, and this raised a strange possibility. Could consciousness itself play a role in turning possibilities into reality? In the quantum world, Particles do not seem to exist in one single state before they are measured. Instead, they exist in many possible states at the same time. This strange condition is known as a superposition of possibilities. It is as if the particle is everywhere and nowhere at once, existing in many potential forms. Only when an observation is made does the particle appear in one definite place. The wave of possibilities collapses into a single outcome. For some scientists, this idea felt deeply unsettling, because it suggested that reality might not be fully determined until it is observed. In other words, the universe at its smallest level might remain open and flexible until something interacts with it. Some famous physicists began to explore the philosophical side of this mystery. They asked whether consciousness could be connected to this process of observation. One possibility was that the mind does not simply watch reality, but somehow participates in shaping it. This idea was not easy to accept, because science usually tries to keep the observer separate from the experiment. Scientists prefer a universe that behaves the same way, whether anyone is watching or not. But the strange behavior of quantum particles made this separation difficult to maintain. The act of observing seemed to be deeply connected to what actually happened. At the same time, philosophers began thinking about the nature of reality itself. For centuries, people believed the universe was made of solid objects moving through empty space. But quantum physics revealed something very different. At the deepest level, reality looked less like solid matter and more like patterns of energy and probability. Particles were not tiny billiard balls with fixed positions. Instead, they behaved like waves of possibility that only became definite when measured. This discovery changed the way many scientists thought about the universe. Reality no longer appeared as a fixed structure that existed independently of observation. Instead, it looked more like a dynamic system filled with potential outcomes. And somewhere within that system stood the observer, the human mind, constantly watching, measuring, and interpreting the world. Every moment, people observe countless things around them. They look at objects, listen to sounds, and focus their attention on different parts of reality. But if observation plays a role in shaping outcomes at the quantum level, then the presence of conscious observers becomes even more fascinating. It raises a powerful and mysterious possibility. Perhaps the universe is not just a stage where events happen while humans watch from the audience. Perhaps the observers themselves are part of the performance, part of the process that turns possibility into reality. And if that idea holds even a small piece of truth, then it leads to an even more exciting question. What does this mean for the human mind, and the role it may play in the unfolding story of the universe? As the mystery of observation continued to puzzle scientists and philosophers, a new idea slowly began to take shape. It was an idea that connected the strange world of quantum physics with something very familiar to every human being, the mind. If observation can influence the behavior of particles, then the role of the observer becomes extremely important. And humans are constantly observing the world around them. Every moment of every day, the mind is watching, noticing, thinking, and interpreting reality. This led some thinkers to explore a fascinating concept, the idea of the quantum you. The idea did not suggest that humans control the universe like magicians, but it did raise a deeper possibility, that consciousness might interact with reality in subtle and powerful ways. To understand this idea, it helps to look at how the mind works. The human mind is not just a passive camera recording the world. It does much more than simply watch what happens. The mind focuses attention, creates expectations, imagines future events, and forms beliefs about what is possible or impossible. Every decision a person makes begins inside the mind. A thought appears, an idea forms, and attention moves toward something important. Then that thought influences a choice, and that choice leads to an action. Those actions slowly shape the path of a person's life. In this way, the mind is constantly participating in the creation of personal reality. When someone believes something strongly, it changes how they behave. When they focus on certain goals, they begin to move toward them through their actions. Their attention shapes their choices, and their choices shape the world they experience. Some scientists and philosophers began wondering if this everyday process might connect, in a small way, with the strange principles seen in quantum experiments. In the quantum world, particles exist as many possibilities until observation causes one outcome to appear in human life. The future also begins as many possibilities. Many paths exist at the same time, but decisions gradually turned those possibilities into real events. This similarity made some thinkers ask an interesting question: what if the human mind is not only reacting to reality, but also helping guide which possibilities become real through attention and action? The idea of the quantum you suggests that every person is more than just a passive observer drifting through life. Each individual is also an active participant in shaping their experiences, not by magically changing the laws of physics, but by influencing the chain of choices, actions, and events that unfold over time. Attention becomes a powerful force in this process. Where attention goes, energy and effort usually follow. When a person focuses deeply on learning something, they slowly gain knowledge. When they focus on solving a problem, their mind begins searching for solutions. Step by step, focus guides behavior, and behavior shapes results over time. These small influences can create very different paths for different people. Two individuals may begin in similar situations, yet their beliefs, attention, and decisions lead them in completely different directions. In that sense, each person is quietly participating in the creation of their own life story. The concept of the quantum you does not claim that humans control the entire universe. The cosmos remains vast, complex, and full of forces far beyond human influence. But within the space of human experience, the mind may play a far more important role than people usually realize. Every thought, every focus of attention, and every decision becomes part of the unfolding pattern of reality. The observer is not completely separate from the world being observed. Instead, the observer and the experience may be deeply connected, and this realization leads to a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of seeing life as something that simply happens to them, people may begin to see themselves as participants in a much larger process, participants in the unfolding story of reality itself. And if the mind truly plays this kind of role, even in small ways, then a new and exciting question begins to emerge. What would happen if people became more aware of the power of their own attention and choices? For most of human history, people believed they were simply passengers in the journey of life. The world happened around them, and they reacted to it as best as they could. Events appeared outside their control, and reality seemed like something fixed and unchangeable. But the strange discoveries of the quantum world began to challenge this old way of thinking. If observation can influence the behavior of particles, and if the mind constantly observes and interprets reality, then perhaps humans are not as passive as they once believed. This idea does not mean that people can instantly control the universe or change physical laws. The universe remains vast, complex, and full of forces far beyond any individual mind, but within the human experience, something important is always happening, every day. Each person is making countless decisions. Some choices are small, like what to eat or where to go. Others are larger, shaping careers, relationships, and life directions. Each choice begins in the mind. A thought appears, attention focuses on a possibility, and a decision follows. Then that decision turns into action over time. These actions slowly shape the path of a person's life. In this way, people are not just watching reality unfold, they are participating in it through their decisions and behavior. Two people may face the same situation, yet respond in completely different ways. One person might see a challenge and feel fear, while another sees the same challenge and feels curiosity. Those different reactions lead to different choices, and those choices lead to different outcomes. This is where the idea of moving from passive observer to active creator begins to make sense. The human mind constantly filters the world through beliefs, expectations, and attention. What a person believes influences what they notice. What they notice influences what they think about, and what they think about influences what they decide to do next. This chain reaction quietly shapes the reality they experience. When someone believes change is impossible, they may never attempt something new. But when someone believes growth is possible, they begin exploring opportunities that were once ignored. In this way, beliefs guide actions, and actions guide results over months and years. This process can lead to dramatically different life paths. The concept of the quantum you suggests that awareness plays an important role in this process. When people become aware of their thoughts and attention, they gain a new level of influence over their choices. Instead of reacting automatically to every situation, they begin to pause and think more carefully about their responses. They start asking deeper questions. What am I focusing on? What beliefs are guiding my actions? What possibilities am I ignoring? This awareness opens the door to more intentional living. Instead of drifting through life on autopilot, a person begins to guide their direction with clearer purpose. They still face challenges and uncertainty, just like everyone else, but they approach those challenges with a different mindset. They see possibilities where others may only see obstacles. In this way, they slowly move from being passive observers of life to active participants in shaping their future. The idea is both empowering and humbling at the same time. Empowering because it reminds people that their thoughts, attention, and choices truly matter, and humbling because it also shows how complex and interconnected reality really is. Every action creates ripple effects that spread outward into the world, influencing other events and other people. Life becomes less like a rigid script and more like a dynamic story that is constantly unfolding. And within that story, each person plays an important role, not as the master of the universe, but as a conscious participant, helping shape the path ahead. And this realization leads to one final and fascinating question. If humans are participants in the unfolding of reality, then what does this mean for the future of consciousness and the universe itself? As the journey through quantum physics, consciousness, and human experience comes to an end, the mystery of reality still remains. Scientists have spent decades studying the strange behavior of particles, running experiments again and again, searching for answers. Yet even today, many of the deepest questions remain open. The quantum world continues to surprise researchers with results that challenge common sense. Tiny particles behave like waves of possibility, existing in many states at once. Only when measured do they appear in a definite form. The act of observation seems to play a role in shaping what becomes real. But why this happens is still one of the greatest mysteries in modern science. Some physicists believe the answer lies entirely in the mathematics of quantum systems. Others think the mystery may involve deeper principles that scientists have not yet discovered. And then there are those who wonder whether consciousness itself might be connected to the fabric of reality in ways we do not yet understand. For centuries, humans believed the universe was made of solid objects moving through empty space. But modern physics has revealed something very different at the deepest level. Reality appears less like solid matter and more like patterns of energy, probability, and interaction. The universe behaves more like a dynamic field of possibilities than a rigid machine. Within this field of possibilities, events unfold, particles interact, and new patterns emerge. And somewhere within this vast cosmic process exists the observer, the conscious mind capable of watching, thinking, and asking questions about existence itself. The human mind is one of the most remarkable things in the known universe. It can explore ideas, imagine future possibilities, and reflect on the nature of reality. It can observe the stars, study the smallest particles, and wonder about its own role in the cosmic story. The concept of the quantum you invites people to think differently about their place in this universe. Instead of seeing themselves as small and powerless beings living in a giant mechanical system, they may begin to see themselves as participants in a much larger and more mysterious process. Every observation, every thought, and every choice becomes part of the unfolding pattern of life. Humans may not control the universe, but they are deeply connected to it. Their awareness interacts with the world, their actions shape events, and their decisions influence the future. The observer is not completely separate from reality. Instead, the observer and the universe appear to be part of the same unfolding story. Science continues searching for deeper explanations, building new experiments and exploring new theories at the same time. Philosophy continues, asking timeless questions about consciousness, existence, and the nature of reality. Together, these fields reveal something powerful. The universe is far more mysterious and fascinating than anyone once imagined. And the human mind is not just a spectator watching this cosmic drama from a distance. It is also a participant capable of curiosity, awareness, and intentional action. This realization brings the journey back to the most important question of all. If reality contains possibilities waiting to unfold, and if human awareness plays even a small role in shaping experience, then the future is not completely fixed. It is a story that continues to evolve with every decision, every thought, and every moment of attention, and that leads to a final question that each person must answer for themselves. If observation influences reality, and if you are constantly observing the world around you, then what kind of reality are you helping bring into existence?